Welcome to the Private Lender Podcast with your hosts from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Hey everyone, Chris and Jason here with the Private Lenders Podcast. Thanks for being with us. As always, sponsored by our mastermind group for private and hard money lenders, hardmoneymastermind.com. Go check it out anytime, create a free account, join the conversation. We have a guest today. We have a special guest. This is going to be cool. We have Joseph Fooks from Mortgage Automator. He is a private lender and the founder of private lending industry software, which is definitely getting more and more popular. I know a few of the Inner Circle members are using Mortgage Automator software. And I'm stoked to talk to Joseph and learn more about it.
Hey, Joseph, welcome to the show. How are you?
Jason, thank you so much for having me. Chris, again, as well. So thank you so much for having me, guys.
Appreciate you taking the time. Definitely.
Of course.
Why don't we just start off? Maybe just give us a little bit of background about yourself and how you got into the business of mortgage software.
Sure. So I was in school. Realized it wasn't actually for me. So started as a mortgage agent, mortgage broker when I was 19. 38 now, and just did that for a while. Started a mortgage brokerage. Things didn't work out with a friend, so kind of went on my own. Didn't really like being the mortgage broker anymore, so I decided to get into private lending. Started with a few $1 million. Started managing that by myself, like one-man show. And then next thing you know, I brought in a partner who's actually also one of the founders of Automator, Lauren Schwartz. And we built up our private lending business to about 40 million throughout the years. Today, we're like a mid-sized company. We're about 125 million AUM here in Toronto, Ontario. And what was interesting, I have another friend who's the third founder of Automator. He was in the development space. So he had his own development firm. His name was Pavel Churliev. And so I had originally solicited Pavel to build us basic software for our business. Because back then there wasn't really much out there. The mortgage office has obviously been around for a while. There was another company called Dolphin out of BC. They're the only two who had software. It wasn't something that I needed for my own business. It wasn't something that I was looking for. So I was like, I'll just build my own, not realizing like what it would turn into. And so, we spent a bit of money and we were managing 40 million, just the two of us, no employees, and a broken version, I would say a much hacked up version of what we call Automator today for us. And then I was, no joke, I was at the golf course. We were sponsoring an event. I was hole sitting and I was working, and someone came up to my booth and they said, "What is that?" I said, "Oh, it's the software I built for myself." They're like, "Would you sell it to me or lease it to me? I would buy it. I need this." Because a lot of the software before was only strictly servicing. You'd only start using the platform once the deal was funded. And I was showing her like, "Oh, look, I just generate my docs this way and I manage my files this way." And she's like, and she's a big heavy hitter, one of the most powerful women in the Canadian, at least the Ontario market. And so I talked to Pavel, and he was sort of getting out of his business. He sold his business to his partner. I said, "I think there's a really interesting opportunity here. There's not much in the space. We could build a web-based version," which ours was already. And I said, "Look, we'll throw money at it. We'll seed it. We don't need any investors." And no joke, we started there, and owner selling, myself and Lauren sold the software. And now we're 300 lenders strong using the platform, both Canada, US. First was obviously Canada. We grew it. Then we went to the US, went to the AAPL conference in 2019, just before COVID hit. And there was such a positive reinforcement feedback from the clients of who we were. They loved that we were lenders. There was definitely, look, I'll be transparent. Like there was a lot of reservation from clients at the beginning saying, "Well, you're a lender, you're a competitor, you'll have our data. You'll know who our brokers are. You'll know who our investors are." I said, "Look, that's the risk you take, but we'll sign whatever non-disclosures you want." We said like Automator is going to be much bigger, and it obviously is today, than anything we ever imagined it to be. We said it'll be much bigger. We would never do anything to jeopardize that business by trying to steal. Look, we have our own investors. We have our own lending company. We don't need, you see me at the trade shows, we're still competing for the same business. And so people got comfortable. We had a very strong reputation in Toronto as we never did anything shady, nothing offside. So people gave us a chance. And slowly but surely, we had a few anchor tenants, a few anchor clients who believed in us. We built them whatever they wanted to kind of make the product what it is today. And then showed up in the US, said, look, we're in Canada. We're not going to compete with you. You have nothing to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
US took it very positively. Obviously, we had to rebuild and add a lot of functionality, which we've done. So it's now 2023. And so here we are today. I think we're a household name. We're at every show. In Canada, I think we've done a phenomenal job. We're just shy of 200 Canadian private lenders, which I think is a large market share of the Canadian market. And obviously now expanding to the US, as you had mentioned, you're consulting for some of our clients that use our platform.
Yeah, no, that's a super cool story. And I bet the timing was great too, because backing up a little bit and talking about software, there just haven't been, we're a small niche, right? There haven't been great software solutions historically in this little private lending niche. And you're right, like Mortgage Office has been around for a long time. And then a couple other B player kind of thing. And they weren't web-based when you started. Now they're getting there, but they are so behind the curve in that when you guys started building that software and went immediately online, I bet that made you stand out very easily just with that one, feature.
Chris, you're totally right. So on-prem was very much the way things were done before. You paid large amounts of money to buy software, and then you paid maintenance fees to lease, to make sure you have support. Our approach, at first we were going to do transactional, just pay per deal. We realized quickly that wasn't going to work. And we just kept sort of improvising and changing as we added customers. At some point we said, we're just going to make it monthly, give you 10 seats. You don't have to buy individual licenses. I wanted to make the product attractive to not just big lenders, which I think the software was originally targeted towards, large funds who had no choice but to buy accounting software.
Mm-hmm.
And so we said, there's a lot of small guys, 5 million, 10, 20 million, who could totally benefit from the product. Guys like me, who didn't need some hardcore backend at first. And that's what it started off as, like an origination platform. And I said, if I'm buying this as a lender myself, it's always easy to put myself in those shoes because I am in those shoes every day. I'm in those trenches every day, struggling with things that I always need for my own business. And it quickly came to me that this is how we want to approach it. So it's you don't just buy one license. There's no money down. We'll train you for free. We'll invest in you. We'll make it super easy to get onboarded. We'll get you to buy into the system. And then realistically, to leave, you'd have to find something significantly superior to our platform in order to pick up and leave. And we felt, and we've been able to retain clients very easily because you're right, we are web-based. And COVID, as horrible as it was, it made our lives very difficult in a lot of ways. I would hear literally people calling saying, I can't get onto my computer in the office. I'm struggling or I'm getting billed by remote accessing into my software. I didn't buy that license, or my software doesn't offer remote access. It's on-prem. I have to go to the office, but I'm not allowed to go to the office because it's COVID. And that was honestly a huge catalyst for our business because we said, well, we're web-based, number one. 2, you can have multiple licenses. Don't worry, you don't have to share a license. And 3, you don't have to keep buying the newest version. You're always going to get the most updated version of the product. And people legitimately loved that we were lenders. They said, you guys are really bringing a lot of focus and attention to the things that we're struggling with. The accountants are there to pull their payments and send the money and reconcile the accounts. What we're struggling with is the doc gen, the deal management, the comms, the text messages, you guys have seen it, obviously. So we kind of really went hard on that, but also quietly building a very robust backend all at the same time. And so I think we've brought the right approach, and owner selling obviously had to be done in the beginning. So because we had to relate to the lender, understand their business, and say, well, this is what you're doing wrong. And it's funny, I kind of wear your hat as well. I just don't have that operation you guys are doing. But my partners and I have been consulting for our clients, saying, if you guys want to run 125 million AUM book with 2 employees, I am that guy. I am living proof that we could run a successful operation with 2 people.
I mean, that is a lot outstanding for a team of that size. It really is.
Fully serviced in-house, by the way. Nothing, no third-party servicing business. We just built it, again, originally for our own business. So it's obviously catered to fractionalized investments, but then we built on the fund management. We built on the accounting. We built on all the extra things that our other clients needed, larger clients, $1 billion, $500 million customers. But again, the beginning, it was very much catered towards what you guys are operating as and what I was operating as. And people, I realized there's a lot of guys like us in Canada and the US, especially guys who sell their loans. They're pretty much doing online deal placement, doing the deal, underwriting the deal, managing the deal, and then, okay, it's funded. It's not my problem. It's now being serviced by a third party. And so a lot of people have taken liking to that.
So you guys would handle, let's call it 3 different boxes. Someone who would just originate business and then sell it off or get a table funded by an institutional back lender. Like, so some of your clients would do that. Was it also institutional backed lenders that just needed the servicing side of it? They'd buy paper and then just put them in your system and service as well? Or do those bigger companies have their own?
Great question, Jason.
Because a lot of them, I think, would probably they just use third-party servicing companies, which to me sounds crazy, but I think that's how they would do it.
I think, and the US is so different than Canada, whereas in Canada, everyone services everything in-house. We actually don't even have an FCI type lender in the space.
Interesting.
There have been conversations with some of our larger customers who have the capacity, the $1 billion lenders who have the reach to do it. But in the US, it's been such an interesting adjustment for us. Most people are like, we're happy with this. We don't care to service in-house. I agree with you. It's expensive. It is expensive, and the system is making it very easy to do it.
You just lose control. I mean, one of the things in our mastermind that is talked about a lot is, hey, do you think it's just easier if I just have someone else service our loans? And I'm like, not if you're responsible for all that capital and you want to know what's going on at any given time. Maybe capital investors need to get bought out by another capital investor. They need to know in real time balances, and not that they can't check stuff themselves, or not that you can't call the FCIs of the world to do so. Of course. But I mean, that's always been, our first hire was, a controller or a bookkeeper that would run our servicing, our back end of it. So it's interesting to me. And one thing we've really learned from running this mastermind group, probably more so than anything else, is there is not one right or wrong way to run your lending business. You run it yourself. It's your own capital, or you're responsible for that capital you're raising from private investors. That there is no right or wrong way to do it. And every single person does it differently.
For sure. All we try to do when we bring on customers and the perspective is to understand how they run their business, make sure it fits onto the platform without, we want to make sure it's a good fit, obviously, for the client. But we also say, like, why are you pulling payments every day of the month? Why aren't you just adjusting to the first? You know what? We never did it. We never thought of it. That's going to take our accounting from reconciling 30 times a month to once. I said, yeah, that's how I do it. I pull 180 payments, or I don't know, today it's 160 loans on the books. I pull on the 1st. We pay investors on the 10th. It's really simple. Whoever we can't recoup payments from by the 10th, we send out the letters to the investors saying, hey, these guys bounced. We're working on getting your money back as quickly as possible. That's it. And then if we pull a few payments along the way, we'll schedule everything for the 15th and say, okay, borrowers, we're pulling everything on the 15th. Make sure money's ready, or we've got to, start the legal process. And I think it's about simplifying what shouldn't be a complicated business that people make complicated, because maybe people are used to collecting checks back in the day. I like 12 punctuated checks. No, let us pull, remit. It's clean. It's simple. If you just adjust everything, everyone knows it comes out on the 1st. That's it. And you pull 150 payments on the 1st. And yes, you'll get your 10 bounces or whatever it is, and you deal with it. And then that's it. You don't have to think about it for another 3 weeks. Why are you pulling payments like every 5 days? and not big operations, like not $1 billion funds that have the means, the manpower to do it. Small shops who are like, oh, we just wanted to accommodate the borrowers. And I'm saying, guys, the borrowers are coming to you for private money. Pretty sure you get to call the shots.
It's funny that you say that about the payment dates, because there is one member of the inner circle that we were talking about who, for whatever reason, it just occurred to him in his head that if you close on the 15th, then you should be making their first payment date the 15th of the next month. And if you close on the 7th, then it's the 7th of next month. So he has payment due dates every day of the month. And we're like, well, why don't you just have them all due on the 1st and you do per diem at closing? Like, well, I never thought about that.
Well, it's funny.
He changed though, right?
Yeah, he's changed that. But what's funny, which I didn't even think about till we were just talking about this again, is probably because he didn't come from the mortgage industry, had no experience in the mortgage industry in the past.
Standard mortgage.
So he
stuff.
probably didn't even think about it of like per diem interest.
And even when I used to sell, I don't sell anymore. I'm part of the growth department now, partnerships, projects, all that stuff, integrations. I would talk to clients and say, so like, how do you run your shop? Talk to me. Explain to me what you're doing. Well, we do this. Why? And before I even sell them, I'd convince them that like, if you come on the system, you adapt it properly, the way it was designed, your life will become so much easier. And we've had people grow from 5 million to like, we have success stories of a guy he's a broker in Canada. One man show, was managing like $5 million on Excel. He was like blowing his brains out. We got him on Automator. In 2 years, he's at 75 million.
Wow.
And the guy's still running it with 2 employees. And he's like, I swear to you, I've listened to exactly what you told me. I did it the way you told me to do it. And like, thank you so much. And that's all we want to do is we just want, like you guys, we just want the people around us in the industry just to do things right. I almost think you're doing investors a disservice, borrowers a disservice, your entire team a disservice by just running this disorganized, cluttered operation when really you could really simplify it to like a few dates. Accounting is easier. Payments are cleaner. You don't have as much staff to do the collecting. It's, again, I learned the hard way too. I had investors who wanted post-dated checks, and eventually you have to push back and say, guys, if you want me to put out your money, these are the new rules. Mm-hmm. And that's just something that I learned in the lending business. Nothing I could ever, as a software guy, ever advise somebody. And I think that's what makes us as a company, as a software provider, different than everyone else in the industry. Ask any other software provider in our space or slightly outside of it. How many deals did you close as a lender? 0. 0 is the answer.
Sure.
How can you possibly give a lender advice if you've never done your own deals?
Yeah, totally a unique perspective that, that background brings to the software game as well. And yeah, a couple other questions about that business and its growth and everything else. Have you seen a lot of Automator's growth within the past year or two? I know that you were founded, 6-7 years ago, but the past couple of years, probably you guys saw some huge growth, no?
Yeah. So look, the idea came about 8-9 years ago. And it was really interesting how the idea came about. I had a business partner, just quick backstory on it. It wasn't his fault. He was bad at doing basic math and like typing. I think he had like dyslexia. It's fine. He had a disability. And it was frustrating because brokers, we'd send out a term sheet on a template and the broker would literally say to me, like, why did you send me the wrong interest amount? Like the interest is not matching up to the payments. And you spelt my client's last name wrong. It had 15 letters in it, but you spelt like these letters. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm embarrassed. And I would, argue with my ex-business partner about it. And then I'm like, why am I arguing? And that's what I was like, Pavel, can you build me something that can drag and drop an application, rip the data off whatever the broker provided, calculate the right percentage on the monthly payment, and spit out a 5-page term sheet? He's like, yeah, we could do that. And literally from there, that's how it all started. But we've been growing, like first year, it was 30 clients. The next year we added like another 60. So we're at like 90 clients. Then we grew from 90 to 200. Now we just broke 300 this year. We'll be over 400 by the end of the year. But that's also like features. We've been building a lot of features that clients needed, intuitive stuff. We're seeing competitors are coming out with updated versions that look oddly similar to our product. Marketing material looks oddly similar to our product. I don't take it as an offense. I actually look at it as I think as a compliment. It means that people see us as an industry leader, and the difference I would say is we are listening to people. We have a lot of very close customers who we have very good relationships with, like legitimately friends with these people. They give us advice and we listen. We don't think we know everything. I think that software guys think they know everything, and we all make that mistake in everything we do in life. And our first main thing was like, what do we not know? What can clients benefit from that the system does have today?
Mm-hmm.
You guys are aware of our comms module, right? The text, the emails. Like, you bring on a new hire. Why do they have to have a personality? The system should be, you bring in an employee, you teach them a process, they follow that process. The company should have the language that speaks and represents the company, not the employee. And that's how we've designed the system, to allow
Makes
people
sense.
just to learn a process, not a business.
No doubt. How many employees do you guys have now for that business, for mortgage, just on a Mortgage Automator?
Automator, 60 people, all in-house, nobody offshore. We've heard horror stories of going offshore, competitors who've had issues with piracy issues, competitors coming out of working for, like, for example, we had a competitor, they hired employees who then spun up their own business and stole the code, which I think is a logistical nightmare to deal with. We need to keep, like, there's so much data, so much privacy. We need to make sure we have our finger on the button, and everyone works out of our Toronto office. We have a few remote employees, like, let's say, 2-3 hours away or something, but 55 to 60 of the 60 employees all work in the Toronto office.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a pretty good sized team. Where do you see it going in the next 3-5 years? Like, what's your vision for Automator moving forward as a company?
So my big thing is, like, I always want to close the circle in. Like, we started with origination, right? Solve the problem of document generation, process, workflow. I wouldn't say we're CRM. Like, look, we're not Pipedrive, we're not Zoho, we're not Salesforce, we're not HubSpot. We're not here to market to your clients. It's not the core DNA of the system. Over time, I think we will get there. We're building, we've built custom fields so people can now start customizing their own unique product to track additional information. We have our own custom report builder, so you can now start running your own custom reports. You don't have to rely on our reports anymore. We've integrated with law firms. We've integrated with insurance. We're trying to get clients not to leave the system. We're trying to say, what can we do for you as a customer or as a provider for a customer to say, legals, no problem. We have multiple firms we work with. We work with Private Lender Law, John Hornick, work with Gerasi, Nima, Doss Docs we work with, Dennis Doss. Whoever you use, we're happy to work with. Insurance, no problem. People complained. Insurance takes 3-4 days to get set up. We can't bind the policy on the house. No problem. We hooked up with 2 insurance companies. We can now get live quotes in 10 seconds. Great. Policy bound. What else can we do? We built the legal docs for the clients. No problem. What else can we do? That's, to answer your question, Chris, like, constantly looking to improve the overall ecosystem, bringing chat functionality in to allow people to collaborate together outside of just notes, chat within the system. And then Canada, we have lawyers obviously using our platform in the US. Maybe in the future, having lawyers use our product in Canada as well. It's because the worlds are a little bit different. Everyone does full conveyancing in Canada. So it's a little bit more complicated. But we just want to hear what our clients have to say. And we literally just want to continue making the product bigger. That's why we're hiring. As a founder, look, I know this is going to air. I've yet to take $1 from the business because my lending company, transparent, that's how I found the business. That's how we fund it today. Obviously, the company's profitable, so we don't need to invest into it anymore. But I just want to keep blowing this thing out of the water. And the more people we hire, the bigger the teams we build, the more complex the products we're coming out with. We just built a really cool feature called a form builder. So any compliance doc in any state that's static. So imagine like a form that never changes, 1003, some Patriot Act form that you have to get a borrower to sign, for example. Right now, people have to manually fill these out. We've built our own internal technology to allow us to fully customize and map those types of forms now. So if I ingest 40 fields of data, from a borrower from an online form. I can now map that to 7 different forms, even if the information's the same, name, address, age, add whatever, but different forms. Boom, in 1 second, through DocuSign, out the door it goes. And what takes a human an hour to do, organize, can now be done. It's going to be going live this month. It's going to help people tremendously in their businesses. So maybe even go after brokers who deal with all these nonsense compliance forms that just tedious. The deal doesn't go anywhere. They're just wasting their time. Stuff like that. That's kind of where my head is at.
Yeah. I mean, the reinvesting in the company and the software, the development of it, everything else is clearly huge. I mean, you have gone all in on developing and redeveloping, continuing to it's a, SaaS is like that. It's a never ending project, right? So clearly you guys have really taken that seriously, and it shows. It shows in the increasing popularity of Automator that we originally heard about a while back. And then, fast forward a couple of years and we hear about it all the time, right? So that's a good thing. Certainly become an industry name as of late.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, super cool.
I am my toughest critic. And as a hands-on founder, we're in the office every day. We're grinding with the team every day. We're not sitting back and just chilling and letting people work. We are in their day-to-day, coordinating projects, sales, relations, customer success, listening to people. Myself, again, I'm in charge of the growth department. So the insurance was our idea, the legal docs, further ancillary products. I am my toughest critic. I'm always the toughest on my own product. And I always think it can be better. And I think if you ever think, BlackBerry was my biggest lesson. BlackBerry had the market. I remember in high school, the CrackBerry, right? Everyone had one.
Yeah.
No one has them anymore. Why? Because Samsung and Apple decided to go next level. And I think when software companies become too complacent because they have a majority of the market, we as a disruptor will come in. And again, rather than sitting back and collecting checks, every last dollar goes back into the system. We'll probably have 80 employees by the end of the year. We are like a freight train that's just picking up speed. And the more stuff we can build, the faster, the more efficient we can make the system, the better the UI. You go back to it. Sorry, I'm rambling, but dashboards, custom dashboard stuff, investor port, whatever we can do to make the user experience better than anyone else, but not just by a bit, by significantly. I want to be known as the Ferrari in the industry at a Toyota price, because that's what our industry dictates. We can't charge crazy money for software. We have a target market. Right. That market manages money between 10 and 100 mil, call it on average. There's a price that people are prepared to pay in that realm. And if you're going to be charging Ferrari prices, you're not going to attract the $10 million clients. But the more clients you have, the more your product becomes that product, the more powerful you become as a product as well.
Sure. And as we started with, there's always been a lack of software in this industry to begin with. Everybody band-aids stuff together, including ourselves. That's part of, what we use between other, from industry servicing software to Google Docs and Sheets and apps and stuff like that. And it's the way that we do it. And is it perfect? No, but it's the way that, we've done 3,500 loans in the last 16 years, all private capital. So, we've done quite a bit of business, and still when we talk to people, they're like, oh, what do you use? It's this is what we do. Our whole staff is trained like that. We keep it simple that anyone can work from wherever. We have a full office and people work out of our office, but during COVID, when they weren't allowed to come to the office, we still were able to accomplish it all. But, you figure out what all those Band-Aids are that all of these lenders use between websites and, their websites, their servicing softwares, their origination softwares, the way they communicate internally with their team, email integration. And the next thing you know, you have everything, you have a suite of everything, and they never need anything. All they got to do is log into their account. They don't need to log into Gmail. They don't need to log into whatever their email is. They don't need to log into chat. Their teams are integrated like a Basecamp setup.
Slack, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Do you guys have an app or not yet?
Not yet. That's an idea. It is mobile friendly. So like you can
Yeah.
hop on your phone, and phones are pretty big these days, or like
So that's good.
a lot of guys will take tablets, for example, tether off their
yeah.
phones, or who have
Yep.
data package on their tablets. And it looks great. Like
Yeah, it's perfect.
We have
I'm sure the people watching and listening, I'm sure, have already been Googling Mortgage Automator, so they're probably already taking a look at it. But for those who have not yet done that during this podcast, where can people learn more? Where's the best place to get a demo, check out the software? Where should they go?
www.mortgageautomator.com. Go on our website. We have all of our information there. And yeah, you can schedule a demo right through the website. And one of our salespeople would love to show you guys the product.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could even do that on a future show, or the trainings that we do for the mastermind or something like that. Maybe we'll do a demo for the group sometime. That's actually not a bad idea.
And just so everybody listening or watching, it's compatible with almost any type of way that they're deploying capital, right? If it's a one-off private investor with their own capital and they're just deploying it themselves, to a full-on fund, to direct placement, to syndication. Is that right?
Correct. And we have 8 different ways to calculate interest, because that's what our clients did to us. They pushed us to 30 by 360, 30 by 365, 360 by 365, simple interest. How do you want to calculate interest adjustments? Like literally, we have all the settings. We literally walk people through, say, how do you run your business? Tell us, and we're pretty sure we built a way for you to be able to track your payments in the system.
Yeah, no,
because it's not simple. It's not easy to do. So it's good to, like you said, a lender first, because we know a lot of stories of lenders around our size building their own software. And this is a few years ago, before there was the online versions of a lot of stuff. And we were like, that just seems like brain damage. Like we're lenders. So like by doing so, we're, people are like, hey, you guys should build out your own stuff. You're band-aiding stuff together, and it's like, yeah, we're not in the software space.
No.
We tried to enter that space, and it's not something that we're interested in. But it just goes to show that, as you guys grow, your snowball gets bigger and bigger, you have more momentum. Like, it's going to be hard for any competition to ever touch you, just because we know all the stuff that goes into it. I mean, we're like, hey, we have an investor that's buying out this person, but they're not getting par. There's got to be a discount. And how do we process this? Like, we have multiple investors. They're all getting different rates. There's multiple lenders involved. Like, there's so many different things that most lenders don't know until real time. I mean, it's like, well, and whenever people come up to me, and we've been pitched. I don't know, Chris, if you remember years ago in our old office, we were pitched by a company out of Pennsylvania that came in. Yes. It was like, hey, we're like, yeah, you guys are just too new. Like, you don't know what you guys don't. You guys don't.
Yeah.
You have no idea what you don't know yet. And I'm like, what would it do in this? And they're like, I don't know. What does that mean? And it's like,
and that's how we, like, because when we built it, it's funny you say that, Jason. Literally, it was like, okay, so I have an investor. Great. You have one investor that gets X rate. Great. We can do that. But what about a payout statement with 5 investors all making different spreads? And one of the investors is collecting spread from the other guy because he brought him in as a referral.
Yep.
How are you going to deal with that?
Yeah.
And how are you going to deal with like an AB tranche? So you do $1 million loan, and the last 200 is done at 12%, but the total, the gross rate of the loan is 10. The B piece, the guy first loss, is making 13. The other guy's making 7. How are you going to figure out what each guy gets? And then if you pay down the loan, who's getting paid down what? And how does that all account on the statements? And how does it show up on the statements? And we, being in the business, ran all those edge cases. We ran into every one of these investor replacements, or what if you're a fund, but you also do fractionalized investing? How do you have a fund and a fractionalized investor? Well, you have to have 2 separate statements. You have to have a fund statement, but also a regular statement. And we only dealt with this and built it this way in the beginning, knowing, and look, we still ran into a few edge cases, but we had a lot of them covered. When people would, like you guys would ask me, how do you handle that? I'd say, oh, I've dealt with exactly that same problem. I know exactly how to deal with it. We've already have this edge case covered. And listen, you want to build software, it's expensive. I remember I was $500,000 deep into the product just for my own business, and I still never looked back, and it still barely did anything. But and with no intention to commercialize it. It was good enough for us to manage our business. And that was $500,000. That's not a little bit of money. That was a big investment. And so I always say to people, like, guys, tread carefully, because like 50K turns into 200K, turns into 600K, and now you're stuck. And it still doesn't do everything you want. And so for just to lease the software from us, fully out the box, more or less ready to go, with a lot of customization, a lot of integration available, Zapier integrations available, HubSpot integration, Salesforce integrations ready to go. You don't need to just pay your monthly subscription fees and let us all do all the heavy lifting. Just support our business so we can make it better for you.
So do you guys do a lot of, like, how does your onboarding integration work? Just from experience, like we're pretty savvy, and we've got big built out Infusionsoft stuff. Like we handle that stuff, but a lot of these lenders that I know we talk to, they have a hard time with it, and it's not the money side. They don't care about spending the money on something that they need. It's more of like, shit in, shit out, right? Like if you don't plug things in the right way, it's not gonna work for you. So do you guys have that integration built in for them?
Yeah, we even with HubSpot, we actually have a consulting firm, a third-party HubSpot firm that will do a one-way sync, a two-way sync, map everything. They know how our system works today.
Interesting.
Zapier is great too. So if you're using things outside of Salesforce and HubSpot, you're using other third-party CRMs, you can just map it yourself. It's not that complicated. And again, if you need consultants or developers, like we don't like raise our hand and say, let us do this for you. It's not exactly like what we want, but if we have solutions that already work, that a majority of our clients have, like, look, HubSpot and Salesforce seem to be the two big ones a lot of guys use. Like, why try to go off course? Like, really, it's to track your leads, let them come in, push the data into our system when the deal funds, push it back into HubSpot, no problem. Track all your things, do your mass marketing mail stuff outside of our system. We don't want our system to become that, because that's a slippery slope, guys. We're not a Fortune 500 CRM platform. We're not HubSpot. Like, that's their job. We have so many other headaches and other things that we have to deal with. This is just one thing we don't want to take on, because we know we can't compete with HubSpot. We're not that size. So we'd rather just partner and pipe into whatever you need. And again, we just ask people, what are you looking for? What do you need? What do you want? Maybe we can do it inside of Automator if you're not too complex. Just about getting to know who your client is on a personal level, an intimate level, to understand, like, what does their business look like and what can you do to advise them to make it better? That's really what we're trying to focus on. No,
it's super cool that you've been, handling that task and basically bringing something new and important to the industry that it needed for sure. And that we used to complain about back in the day. And anyway, great addition to the industry. I think that you guys are running a great project, a cool company. It's growing, going to grow more. We're definitely happy we connected, so we can watch everything that Automator is going to become. I think it'd be super cool. I really definitely appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, Chris, absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me.
Back up for another. Absolutely. Thanks again for being here.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you.
I was just going to wrap up there. So hope everyone enjoyed the show, Private Lenders Podcast. We'll see you here next time, and we will see you inside hardmoneymastermind.com.
Thanks, guys.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast. Please note that the opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not intended for legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, accounting, and financial professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 free community for new and experienced private and hard money lenders.